Alright, hello and welcome to the Gman Season 6 Div 4 and 5 recap of Week 8. And this is Motley Gman coming at you. And let's just kind of jump into what we're looking at for last week's action. It's really getting down to the end of the season. And let's see how all of our teams are faring. It's getting pretty exciting, I must admit. I'm looking forward to seeing how everything finishes up this season, and we're really starting to see kind of the storyline that's gonna be running for the last few weeks here, both in Div 4 and Div 5. So let's take a look at the matches real quick. For Div 5 first, we've got the Bayer Bricklayers, Lizardmen versus the Preston Penguins. Our late ad human team. That's always going to be a tough matchup for humans. They do, of course, outskill the Lizardmen, but they have a significant strength disadvantage. The hope is going to be to tie up the Saurus and not get knocked out too much, so that they can keep them tied up and get at those skinks. And yes, wow, that's a pretty significant number of removals for both teams. 5 injuries for our humans, which is pretty impressive. I wonder if he got a decent chance at hitting those skinks. And 6 removals altogether for the bricklayers. So that looks like it was a pretty good match. I might go back and watch this replay if I get a chance. That looks pretty exciting. And sorry for the spoilers ahead of time, but doesn't let me go directly back to day 8. We had Slip and Gits versus Innsmouth Inchworms. So, pretty good job for our Nurgle player, I would say there. Oh, this looks like it was they weren't able to play the match. It looks like it was both teams were mutually not able to play the match, so they just turned it. It was just an admin draw. Nice getting the level up on the Nurgle warrior there, though. And then one of the significant games going in, Bane of the Living and Dead Game playing against each other. 2 regen teams, and the 1-1 tie, and that kind of hurts both their chances, which is a little unfortunate. I think at this point that kind of puts Drop Dead Gorgeous at a decent amount ahead, and so the other teams in the division no longer have control of over their own destiny, whether or not they're going to make it to the playoffs. Crow Dog and Drop Dead Gorgeous are the only ones with the, if they went out, nobody's catching them. Of course, that was true before, but I think, for example, if Is This a Furry Team won their match, and one of these teams won their match, it would have definitely made the division a lot closer up at the top of the standings. Still, there's a lot to play for, and yeah, it looks like a scrappy fight between both players. Dead Game with 8 removals altogether, and Bane of the Living with just 3. But more of the ball possession for Bane of the Living. So that's a bit curious. The lack of agility might have really hurt the Camry team. That's likely what happened. But 2 of the top coaches in the division going head-to-head. No, not really a huge surprise that they tied it. Most certainly. And let's take a look at Drop Dead Gorgeous versus this furry team. And Drop Dead Gorgeous with more of the armor breaks and 2 touchdowns to 1. And that kind of tells the story, I suppose. 4 injuries to 2 KOs. Probably just a, the story of getting more removals than the other player can really be what it's about. Only a slight advantage in the number of blocks thrown to Drop Dead, or DDGC, if we wanna shorten it a little bit. Yeah, 2 of the top teams in the division going at it. Then we've got Ragged Princes tying Mighty Reptiles. And I know the Ragged Princes have had a bit of a rough start to the season, to their first season in Gman, so it's nice to see a result picked up. And that really tells the story of the match. Not a whole lot of blocks either way, which is always what a Wood Elf coach wants to see. So fewer of his players die. And then to round that out, we had the Mad Stompers getting the 2-1 victory over the Chaos Monks, and getting the 5 SPP on Ariel, the Claw Blocker. So that's exciting. Looks like Mad Stompers are developing pretty well, and got a level up on Priest of Pain over here, which is nice. And this this is kind of your classic bash matchup. That is pretty impressive, though, that it was the Chaos Dwarfs got out-removed at lower TV. 2 KOs and 3 injuries for the Chaos Monks. Really kind of what you want to see as a Chaos coach. Definitely not what you want to see as a Chaos Dwarf coach. I'd imagine our Dwarf coach managed to use his advantage in speed on some of his positionals to his advantage to get the win there, but really looks like a bit of a bloodbath there. So let's see where that leaves us after week 8. Drop Dead Gorgeous free and clear in first, a whole almost 2 wins ahead of General Marauder and Bane of the Living, and then Dead Game and Necromantic rounding out the top 4. Bayer Bricklayers also have a shot, but at this point, looks like Bane of the Living are really the team that has the best chance of catching up with our Necromantic coach. Overall, there's been a lot of very solid teams this season, though, which is really nice to see. Really quite nice to see. I've been impressed that the Preston Penguins have managed to get in here and earn any wins, because humans really need to start getting skills on their players and just outskilling the other team. The other teams that they play against, and Lava Jackal's teams have consistently been under TV against their opponents. So that's cool to see. Nurgle with the Innsmouth Inchworms, Tatos going with a really impressive record with one of those slow starting teams that really is kind of looking to build towards its 2nd and 3rd season. And yeah, just it's been a fun season to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all ends up. So let's go ahead and look at how some of these teams are being built out. And I would like to take a look at, let's start with some of the newer teams that got added in later. Let's take a look at Morkalone Gym. They're developing pretty nicely. Getting Block as a first level up on a Black Orc, always nice, much less risky. And he's got 3 Black Orcs, all just about ready to take over given any SPP whatsoever. So that's pretty exciting. This could be a fun team to look at. And I know Darkacell joined us late in the season as well. So this could be a fun season, a fun team to look at next season, especially because it looks like he's building it pretty well. I don't normally go 2 throwers on orcs, but I could see a use for that, I suppose, if you use one as kind of a reroll, maybe dropping a reroll and getting a leader on one when they tick up a level. That being said, one of the strengths of orcs seems to be their armor value 9. So adding another armor value 8 player can be a bit of a risk. But overall, I'm liking the level up paths. I mean, you've only got 3 level ups here, but block is always a good first skill. And especially on the black orcs, I definitely prefer it over guard or mighty blow, just because it helps speed up the black orcs development, while still making them useful roadblocks, keeps them on their feet more often, and makes it less risky to bash with them too. I'm also going to take a look at the Preston Penguins. They are developing quite nicely. So you've got Lava Jackal has guard on the Ogre and 2 of his blitzers, Wallace and Andrew Flintoff. And then I'm liking the plus movement on the blitzer. One of the big strengths of Yumi's is their better than average movement. And that's pretty nice to see. Getting that additional movement should really make them hard to defend against, and also a pretty decent defensive team as well. It looks like he's building it out as a passing team, because I think when I was looking at the statistics, they've made a few passes, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, hold on, let me take a look at his thrower, see how many passes he's completed. Oh, he's made 5 passes. So yeah, he is building him out as and using him as a pretty decent, pretty solid thrower. So good level up path for him as well. I'm curious how many more catchers he go for. That'd be nice to see. And is there a permanent injury on the kick piece? No, just space next game. So yeah, pretty strong build for this team, and I love all the guard. Humans can definitely outbash a lot of teams, especially at early team values. So I'm liking that quite a bit. And what other teams should we go ahead and take a look at? Let's take a look at the Mad Stompers, perhaps. And looks like his Hobgoblins have taken a beating, but getting some decent level ups. 2 level ups each on the 2 Bull Centaurs, going break, tackle, and block, keeping them nice and mobile. I can appreciate that. Claw on Ariel, guard on Bell. That's always good. You want the guard to be able to maintain your bash advantage, and you want the claw whenever you can get it. So that is always nice. So you can develop him into a killer, and then also develop some into support pieces. That's pretty good. Of course, I think we should probably take a look at Drop Dead Gorgeous, because they are the most likely to make it to the playoffs at this point, and see how they're developing. He's got a very agile werewolf, able to get around just about everywhere, and I do like the dodge as the next pickup on this werewolf. Helps him get around just about everywhere. Obviously not as good against in terms of pure blocking, But I'd imagine this werewolf is going to score a lot of touchdowns until he can get 3 and 4 skills. Uh, so that's really nice. And we've got a flesh golem that's just about ready to take over, one that already has block. Honestly, once you get block and guard on your flesh golems, I consider them almost complete players, unless you can get something like, doubles and dodge or something to make them really hard to get down. But turning them into roadblocks always a good thing. And I'd imagine the plan was to get maybe more fowlers or a kick piece, but you roll doubles, you take guard on zombies. The only bad thing about that is now he has semi-valuable zombies, rather than just chaff that you can throw in front of the opposing player's killers. You kind of not so much want to protect these zombies, but it's nice to keep them around. And yeah, that kind of rolls through most of the teams I want to look at in the division. Let's take a look at one more team. Let's take a look at Dead Game. And developing quite nicely. That is an army of skeletons if I've ever seen one. 15 players. I'd imagine with this lineup, he's just throwing these skeletons to stick the boot in at every possible opportunity, and I appreciate that tactic. The one rough thing about this early, about getting this many skeletons this early is at this point, you're almost 50% to get the MVP star player points on a skeleton rather than a positional. But in terms of winning now, I do kind of like the foul at every chance you get strategy that he's going for. But that just might slow down the long-term development of the team. There's trade-offs, of course. So, not too bad. Not too bad at all. And that's going to go ahead and round out this team, this division. Let's take a look at the week ahead. I believe my pick for Game of the Week was going to be Drop Dead Gorges vs. Bane of the Living, which has already been played. But there's also some good matchups coming in. Innsmouth Insurance versus the Safari team. I've been impressed at our Nurgle coach's ability to hang on with teams that have higher early game power, like low TV power than them. And you've got Barrack Bricklayers going up against Dead Game. That's going to be a bit of a bash fest. I think Dead Game might have the advantage, just because those Strength 5 players are going to be really tough to get past for the Lizardmen. Then we've got Dead Pirate Roberts. I'm not sure if they're still playing since they didn't play last week's matchup, so that'll be interesting. Morkalone Jim versus Chaos Monks, our newer Orc team versus the Chaos team, and Slipping Gids versus Ragged Princess. All right. So that'll be an interesting week going up ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into Season 6 Div 4. And let's take a look at the previous week's action. We had a draw between the two Norse teams, Ankash City Watch and Pembleford Drink Care. And the injury numbers tell the story of this, I think. That must have been a fun game to watch. I think I might actually just try and make a cast of this game, maybe a little bit later, because 4 injuries and a kill versus 6 injuries, there could not have been many players left standing. And really, when Norse goes against Norse, actually, when you just watch Blood Bowl in general, I feel like that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see dead and broken players all over the pitch. So that's pretty exciting. And thank you for the entertaining match, Norse coaches. We had Star Rats beating out Dangerous Lizards. That's a bit of a blow to the Lizards, but it is always hard to stop the Skaven from scoring, and I'd imagine that's what happened here. Yep, and that tells the story. The Lizards did all the blocking, the Skaven did all the running away, and just managed to score quicker than the Lizards. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The Rats did manage to put up a little bit of a hurting on the Lizards, but the Lizards, with 6 injuries inflicted and 2 kills, I'd be interested to see what the Rats team looks like after this. Then Northtown Fish Boys getting the 2-0 win over the Rockomotive Git Stompers, and I'd imagine that was a pretty fun positional battle between the two of these players. Yeah, Rockomotive Git Stompers with 5 removals from 65 blocks, and the humans managed to get 6 removals from 34 blocks thrown. That's gotta be pretty frustrating for the Norse coach, I would imagine, and that kind of tells the story. Humans have if they're getting removals at an equal rate to the Norse, then they're probably going to win it because they've got the better positional players, really. Then we've got No Doubt and Failure versus Blue in the Face. Oh, and that was a concede victory. So that's going to be good for their development at the very least. Then Team Group Hug versus Erwin Doris Chance. 2 Nurgle teams going at it, and Team Group Hug is the newer of the Nurgle teams, if I'm not incorrect. Yes. So, good for them being able to get a result against their Nurgle counterparts. Of course, always tough playing both of these teams since they're not the strongest starting out. It looks like Team Group Hug just managed to get more removals. Wow. Yeah, with 16 armor breaks. That definitely kind of tells the story of that. Both killing a player on either side, so that'll be interesting to see. Probably Rotters, but if they weren't, that's exciting. And then 7 Circles tying Society of Dead Poets to the top 4 teams in the division. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. So that does kind of hurt both of their chances to pass up Darkstar Second Liners, but Darkstar Second Liners not actually pulling ahead with the 0-0 tie versus Kuratora. So 7 Circles versus Society. And Zinch has been putting out a bunch of videos. I've noticed him putting out videos for every week of his matches, so feel free to go ahead and check him out because always fun to watch more Blood Bowl, and he does a pretty good job. And I believe this was the match with the Leaping Chaos Warrior, if I'm not incorrect. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should definitely go check it out, is what I'm saying. And then we've got Darkstar Second Liners with the tie versus Kurotora. So that's pretty exciting for Kurotora. We've got a ghoul with got plus Agi from that. That's nice. And looks like they just weren't able to play the match, which is totally understandable. I know a lot of matches, between work and all that, it could be tough to get these matches scheduled. But both coaches have seemed pretty engaged for the most part, especially since they've played almost all their matches. So I wouldn't imagine they are skipping town on us or anything. So that leaves us with Darkstar Second Liner still in the lead, but only by a slim margin. Seven Circles has a reasonable chance of catching them, especially if they get the win this week. Society of Dead Poets is close behind, so is No Doubt in Failure, so is Dangerous Lizards, and then we've got the teams at the middle of the table, all with a bit of an outside chance to get that as well. But that's exciting. Both uh, both divisions are coming down to the wire. This one a little more so because the top few teams are so close together. It's going to be exciting to see if anyone can dethrone Darkstar Second Liners and Bobby Bintang. So let's take a look at some of these teams. Of course, let's take a look at the top team just to see how they're coming along. Looks like there have been some removals on this team, some trimming, should we say. And I'm always a fan of trimming elf teams. Ooh, we've got a dangerous witch elf. Looks like she's going to be the one who dodges in and sacks the ball carrier. So the plus agi in the wrestle, always good. Then we've got block on the other. Blodge Mighty Blow on a blitzer. That's really nice. Blodge Tackle on another. Yeah, just a really strong team. And the plus movement on a blitzer. Really, really strong. And I definitely like this build without necessarily having a runner. You don't necessarily need the access to the passing skills. Dark Elves have seemed to be a bit more of a running team anyway. And limiting the amount of armor value 7 on the team to kind of keep positionals is always good. And I would not consider the runner a key positional in any way. So that is really nice for our Darkstar Second Liners. They're built pretty well. Almost every player has a skill, at the very least. Let's take a look at how Dangerous Lizards are shaping up. 3 Sorai with block, which is always good. That's right, he did have a Saurus that had block already die, and that's always painful as a Lizardman coach. That really sets you back. But Tarbosaurus, if he gets an MVP, is going to level up. And each of these have a decent chance of leveling up as well. And Skinks with some decent SPP on them as well. Let's see who else. Kurotora, the team that managed to get the draw versus our top team in the division, quite impressive. Got the plus agi werewolf with minus movement. That's rough, most definitely. You kind of want to keep the full movement on your plus agi player because that's a player that's pretty easy to score with. But 7 movement is still pretty darn good and just about enough. And then he's got a pretty much fully built out flesh golem. So that's going to be annoying to deal with. Block and guard is pretty much all you need. And then you can kind of pivot around those flesh golems. And goodness, I don't think Antikas Karios knows how to roll anything but stat ups because he's got a plus movement ghoul and a plus agility ghoul. That's annoying to have to kind of corral. This is one of the, higher movement regen teams to begin with, and then you throw in all of that nasty stat up goodness, and it's tough to handle. And blodge plus movement on that werewolf. Yeah, tough to handle. Tough. So we've got that for Kurotora. Let's take a look at our Nurgle teams. Because while they may not have the greatest record typically in their first season, their second season will probably be much better. Got a Rodder with block and claw and minus movement. Another block plus agility Rodder. In general, I'm not a huge fan of leveling up Rotters all that much, because at this point, you've got 2 Rotters who are pretty fragile, and they're taking up 180k in team value. I might consider booting them, and you're probably not going to... this Rotter, Gunther Ewald, doesn't really have the movement necessarily to take advantage of the plus agility. But that's just my opinion. You can build him however you want. Looks like we've got a kill piece developing nicely in Aklis. Block Mighty Blow Claw. Always going to be dangerous. Finally got a level up on one of the Nurgle Warriors. That's great. He's got block. And we've got 2 Nurgle Warriors, Baron Crapula and Baron Bordetella Pertusi, getting quite close to their first level up as well. It's developing pretty well. And, oh, where's our other, Team Group Hug. Let's see how they're doing. Let's see, got 3 Nurgle Warriors, 4 Pestigars. Those Pestigars are developing quite nicely, I must say. Looks like is that a Niggle on this Pestigar? Yes. Not the worst, necessarily, especially on a regen piece. But, there's definitely a target on Measles' back. And, developing Smallpox into a Sacker. Extra arms on Spanish flu, so that should help with picking up the ball. Kind of using Spanish flu as a ball carrier, so that's pretty decent. Nurgle Warriors with no development, that's always a bit rough, and they're hard. They're just hard to skill up. But coming along pretty nicely, I must say. And who else should we take a look at? Let's take a look at one of our Norse teams. How about? Augur City Watch have had a bit of a rough go of it this season so far. Let's see how they're developing. Take a quick peek. Coached by Luck Lazy. Got a Berserker, another Berserker, no level. Claw and Guard on the Yeti. That's decent. Yeti is one of the, since he starts with Claw, is one of those players that I might go Mighty Blow on pretty early. Just because it can be so great to get removals with the Yeti. But I'm also a fan of Guard on big guys, and so he's going to be a tough one to deal with. Got a minus armor value on an All Foreigner. I'd imagine it's probably time to boot him and get a different one as soon as Luck Lazy has the money for it. That sucks to have to replace such an expensive positional, though. And then a lineman doing lineman things, block, fend, tackle. Doesn't really look like Luck Lazy is looking to turn into fouling Norse, which is decent, but if, also puts it's kind of a high risk, high reward style, and you don't know if you're going to be getting bribes during the match, and that can, dirty player is only, fouling is only useful so often. But yeah, I like the plus agi on the lineman. I wonder if he's going to continue to maybe use Fred Colin to try and carry the ball a lot. I don't necessarily disapprove of that. Not the greatest movement, but not bad movement either, necessarily. So that plus agility is pretty nice. Pretty nice. And finally, let's take a look at Star Rats, because I know they took quite a bit of a beating, didn't they? And there we go. Yeah, 2 kills against them, and oh, 6 players left on the squad. That's all you really need to know. And just enough to get another gutter runner. That's rough. That's just always going to be tough. And rats, you know, like they can be so tough to deal with, and you know, like they can do rat things. You've got the plus movement 1-turner, but my goodness, this team has taken such a beating. Oh, so that kind of pulls together everything from Div 4. Let's take a look at the next week. And sorry for the spoilers, but we've got top team drawing against another team. That's leaving the door open a little bit for some of our teams to pass them, or at least catch up a little bit. So I'm excited to see if Society of Dead Poets can get the win over the Dangerous Lizards, or Seven Circles can beat Urandor's Chance, because that would really make the end of this season pretty dramatic. Looks like Rockomotive gets Stompers Majors get the 2-0 victory over August Watch. That's going to be a match of more developed Norse versus less developed. That probably is pretty rough on the less developed Norse, I must say. We've got Blue in the Face Elves versus Star Rats. Maybe a high-scoring game. I'd be interested to see that. Team Group Hug versus Pimpleford or Drink Hair. Probably an advantage to the Norse team, but if Team Group Hug can punish them for the lower armor value, anything can happen. Dangerous Lizards versus Society of Dead Poets. You've got big behemoths bashing up against big behemoths. Lizardmen versus the Khemri and their Tomb Guardians. Lots of high strength players just hitting each other. And then Northtown Fish Boys, humans versus Necro, Kurotora. Kurotora is pretty developed, so I think around these team values we might start to see the things flip. Humans are pretty decent to start out, and Necro really start to surpass them as they level up. So I think Necro might have the advantage at these team values, perhaps. And finally, Erwindor's Chance versus Seven Circles. That's going to be dramatic. Seven Circles have the best chance of dethroning the Dark Elves at the top of the division. But Nurgle's a hard matchup, and we've got a lot of good coaches in this division. So good luck to everyone. That finishes off the recap. Hope you have a good rest of the season. I'll be back to recap Week 9. And yeah, good luck to everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. If any of you coaches want to hop on and join me for any of these recaps, I would love it. But with that, and without further ado, good luck next week. This has been Motley signing out.